First, I want to greet you on your YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We also remind you that every day we post story on this channel. What you need to do is to click subscribe so that every story we post on this channel reaches you immediately. Also remember, like, comment, and share our story with your friends, because our stories change many lives. Let's start the story. This is a full, detailed life story of Benjamin Netanyahu, written in a clear narrative style, suitable for study, general knowledge, or history. The life and political story of Benjamin Netanyahu. Introduction. Benjamin Netanyahu, often called Bibi, is one of the most powerful, long-serving, and controversial political leaders in modern Israeli history. To his supporters, he is a strong defender of Israel's security and a brilliant strategist who protected the country in a dangerous region. To his critics, he is a divisive figure whose policies deepened conflict, weakened democratic institutions, and prolonged instability. Few leaders anywhere in the world have dominated their country's political life for as long as Netanyahu has dominated Israel's. His career stretches across decades of war, peace efforts, economic transformation, social change, and political crisis. Understanding Netanyahu's story helps explain not only Israel's internal politics, but also the wider Middle East conflict and Israel's relationship with global powers. Early life and family background. Benjamin Netanyahu was born on October 21, 1949, in Tel Aviv, just 1 year after the creation of the State of Israel. His birth came at a time when Israel was still fighting for survival, surrounded by hostile neighbors and struggling to define its national identity. His father, Benjamin Netanyahu, was a respected historian and intellectual, specializing in Jewish history and Zionism. Benjamin was deeply influenced by revisionist Zionism, a nationalist movement that believed Jews needed a strong, independent state backed by military power to survive. This worldview strongly shaped Benjamin Netanyahu's political thinking later in life. Netanyahu's mother, Sila Netanyahu, played a more private role, raising the family and supporting her husband's academic career. Benjamin grew up with two brothers, Yonatan Yoni Netanyahu, the eldest, and Iddo Netanyahu, the youngest. The Netanyahu family spent several years living in the United States, where Benjamin taught at universities. As a result, Benjamin attended school both in Israel and in America. This gave him fluent English, deep familiarity with Western culture, and confidence speaking to international audiences, skills that later became central to his political success. The death that changed his life. Yonatan Netanyahu. One of the most defining events in Benjamin Netanyahu's life was the death of his brother Yonatan Netanyahu. In 1976, Yonatan commanded an elite Israeli military unit that led a daring hostage rescue mission in Entebbe, Uganda. Palestinian and German terrorists had hijacked an airplane and held Israeli passengers hostage. The Israeli raid succeeded, rescuing most hostages, but Yonatan Netanyahu was killed during the operation. Yonatan became a national hero in Israel. His death deeply affected Benjamin. Many observers believe it strengthened Netanyahu's belief that Israel must always rely on force, intelligence, and deterrence, because compromise and weakness could cost lives. Benjamin later helped establish organizations dedicated to fighting terrorism, often invoking his brother's sacrifice to explain his worldview. Military service. Like most Israeli citizens, Netanyahu served in the Israel Defense Forces, IDF. He joined Sayeret Matkal, one of Israel's most elite special forces units. This unit specializes in reconnaissance, counterterrorism, and secret operations. Netanyahu participated in several military missions, though he was not as famous for battlefield leadership as his brother. Still, his service gave him strong credentials in a security-focused society, lifelong connections with military and intelligence elites, credibility when speaking about national defense. In Israeli politics, military experience is often essential. Netanyahu's service helped establish him as a serious leader. Education and early career. After completing his military service, Netanyahu returned to the United States for higher education. He studied at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology (MIT), one of the world's top universities. He earned a bachelor's degree in architecture and a master's degree in business management. Netanyahu briefly worked as a management consultant, gaining experience in economics and corporate strategy. This background later influenced his strong belief in free market reforms, privatization, and reducing government involvement in the economy. However, Netanyahu was not destined for a quiet professional life. His ambition was political. Entry into politics and diplomacy. Netanyahu entered public life in the early 1980s through diplomacy rather than elections. He became Israel's deputy chief of mission at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., and later served as Israel's ambassador to the United Nations from 1984 to 1988 at the UN. Netanyahu became known for sharp debating skills, aggressive defense of Israel, strong media presence. He regularly accused Arab states and Palestinian groups of terrorism and hypocrisy, while portraying Israel as a democratic state under constant threat. These performances made him famous in Israel and abroad. In 1988, Netanyahu was elected to Israel's parliament, the Knesset, as a member of the Likud party, a right-wing political party rooted in nationalist ideology. First term as prime minister, 1996 to 1999. In 1996, Netanyahu achieved a major political breakthrough. He won Israel's first direct election for prime minister, becoming the youngest prime minister in Israeli history at the time. His election followed the assassination of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, who had signed peace agreements with the Palestinians known as the Oslo Accords. Many Israelis were divided between hope for peace and fear of terrorism. Netanyahu campaigned on security, skepticism toward the peace process, opposition to major territorial concessions, challenges and achievements during his first term. He slowed down implementation of the Oslo Accords but did not cancel them. He signed the Hebron Protocol, withdrawing Israeli troops from part of the city. He negotiated the Wye River Memorandum, involving limited withdrawals from the West Bank. His government was unstable, facing internal coalition conflicts, tension with the United States, criticism from both left-wing and right-wing Israelis. In 1999, Netanyahu lost re-election and temporarily left politics. Political comeback and economic reforms. Netanyahu returned to government in the early 2000s, serving as foreign minister and later as finance minister. As finance minister, he pushed aggressive economic reforms, including cutting welfare spending, privatizing state-owned companies, reducing taxes, encouraging foreign investment. Supporters credit him with helping modernize Israel's economy and strengthen its high-tech sector. Critics argue his policies increased inequality and harmed poorer communities. Second era as prime minister, 2009 to 2021. In 2009, Netanyahu returned to power as prime minister, beginning the longest and most influential period of his leadership. This era defined modern Israeli politics. Security and foreign policy. Netanyahu focused heavily on security threats, especially Iran's nuclear program, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon. He strongly opposed any deal allowing Iran to enrich uranium, famously addressing the U.S. Congress in 2015 to criticize a proposed nuclear agreement, an unusual move that strained relations with American leadership. Under Netanyahu, Israel fought several wars in Gaza, expanded intelligence and cyber capabilities, strengthened military deterrence. Relations with the world. Netanyahu cultivated close ties with conservative leaders in the United States, Russia, India, some Arab states. His government supported normalization agreements between Israel and several Arab countries, reshaping regional diplomacy. The Palestinian question. Netanyahu consistently opposed a fully sovereign Palestinian state unless strict security conditions were met. His critics argue his policies expanded Israeli settlements, weakened peace negotiations, entrenched occupation. Supporters argue he prevented dangerous concessions and protected Israeli civilians. This issue remains one of the most divisive aspects of his legacy. Corruption allegations and legal battles. In 2019, Netanyahu was indicted on charges of bribery, fraud, breach of trust. These charges shocked Israel. Never before had a sitting prime minister faced criminal indictment. Netanyahu denied all allegations, claiming the investigations were politically motivated, the media and judiciary were biased against him. The legal case deeply polarized Israeli society, triggering repeated elections and mass protests.